welcome to our very first episode of Cozy with Jill and Lisa. This was kind of a idea that we came up with because we used to do Ask Aunt Ann, if you remember that show on Watertown TV. And so we decided we wanted to do something new, something that was a little bit less, what's the word are we going to use? Time involved?
Yeah,
a little less time involved.
A little bit less stressful.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
And a little bit more us.
True.
Jill and Lisa,
right,
rather than Aunt Ann and producer.
Exactly. Although I was on occasionally as Marjorie. Yes. I got on a few times. But so this is what we're doing. We're doing Cozy. So we both, I think, have an affinity maybe for creating some stuff that's cozy, at least to us. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about, well, what is cozy? Because everybody, I think, has a different idea of what cozy is, right? And have you heard of the word? It's spelled H-Y-G-G-E. Yes, and it's a Danish-Finnish word, right?
Yes.
And it's pronounced
hygge.
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 So like the hue of a color with "ga" at the end. And we've heard it pronounced a lot of different ways, but that's what Google says. And so we're going with Google.
At least for today.
At least for today, until somebody out there tells us, no, you're doing it wrong.
Yes.
So like I said, it was brand new. We're just kind of feeling our way. We just want to share with you some ideas of things that are cozy. Maybe today we're going to talk about some movies and some TV shows that we'd like to recommend to you. We each have a recipe to share with you that has to do maybe with, it's June right now. And so, we'll talk about what's going on in June. We'll try to be as timely as we can, and hopefully we can do this every month. And we'd like you to share with us what you think is cozy and hygge. And we'll have a Facebook page and an Instagram page, and they're not quite ready yet, but we'll have that information hopefully on the bottom of the screen by the time you see this, so you can join in, because we really want to know what's cozy to you.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just talk a little bit about ourselves. And I've been doing a lot of talking, so Lisa, I think you should start.
Thanks, Jill.
Yeah.
I am Lisa Steffel. I currently live here in Watertown with my husband and our two dachshunds, Lucky and Gracie, who I'm sure you will meet at a later time in a later episode. We have lived here in Watertown for about 24 years now.
Wow.
And have done things like theater with the Watertown Players and with Jill's theater production, Penguin Players. We are involved in our church. We just enjoy being here. We feel cozy in Watertown. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. And you guys live on the western side of town.
We do.
Yes. In a really pretty house, which we'll get to see in one of our other episodes. So I'm Jill Nadeau, and you've probably seen me on Watertown TV, if that's where you're watching this, quite a bit, because I actually volunteered there and worked there. Got paid for it since like 2000. I've also done a few of the forums in town here when we have an election, because I'm the president of the AAUW with the American Association of University Women. Professionally, broadcasting, I've finally gotten into it after many years of not, but I work for Wisconsin Public Radio, and I'm a producer and host for the Larry Mueller Show. So hopefully you've seen me there. If not, check it out, or heard me there, I should say. It's radio. And I live on the historic South Washington Street, and this is my house. It's a Victorian house that was built in we're not sure, between 1870 and 1880 in that time frame, and around 1900 it was actually split into two. So I now live on one side, and then I rent out my other side as an Airbnb. It's called Belle Maison. So little shot there for my Airbnb.
It's absolutely lovely.
Thank you.
Yes, you've spent a lot of time and attention making all the details just so.
Yeah, and details are so important when we're talking about cozy. Details, oh my gosh. So everything needs to coordinate. So if you kind of look, and I know people are out there like, I'm not Martha Stewart. But you don't have to be Martha Stewart. And even this, the charcuterie that Lisa made for us, it's absolutely beautiful. You've got a few things I'm sure you have in your house, but instead of putting the box on the table, take 2 seconds and put it on a pretty plate. And it makes such a difference, and you feel better about how you're, it's a sense of calmness. Do you get that feeling when it's everything aligns right?
Yes, everything is sort of coordinated and everything has its place and is a reflection of your personality and your style and brings a lot of contentment.
Yeah, absolutely. I just saw a quote from Helena Bonham Carter today about how everything in life is art. You know, the way you dress, the way you set a table, the way you arrange your house, or whatever. It's art. So you got to think about it that way and not throw away things. I think a lot of times we tend to, it's good enough, you know, or I'm too busy for this, but
just
you know.
enough to get by.
Just enough to get by. That's a really good thought on that one. And even if you don't have a lot of time, you can still do something small, you know. You can do something that makes you feel good. So even if it's just sitting down and petting your dog for, you know, 5 minutes even. It's mindfulness, it's gratitude, and just observation of everything. So.
True. It took me literally less than 5 minutes to take the lovely, delectable items out of the boxes and packages and put them on Jill's lovely plate.
Exactly. And instead of, you know, put the strawberries in their crate, put them on a nice dish because you deserve it. Your family deserves it. Your friends deserve it, right? Make them feel special.
I like the idea of you deserve it.
Yes.
I think that's a lot of what hygge is about. Finding that quality of contentment and well-being,
yes,
because we all deserve it in such a busy, chaotic world these days.
Yes, especially now. Things are horrible in a lot of places, and so you need to take your mind off of it, you know. So we're going to talk a little bit about ourselves, because, you know, it's our show.
And we can.
And we can. No. Just so you kind of get to know us, because we've been friends for a long time. I was trying to figure out when we actually met.
I was thinking about that today, too.
Did you figure it out?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I think, though, you knew Jim before you met me.
Probably.
Through the theater work with Penguin Productions.
Yeah, I think so. Because I needed somebody for my stuff, and Jim was working with Watertown Players, and so I begged him to come and help me with my theater stuff, and so then I think you're right. It had to be a show of some sort.
It's got to be at least 20 years.
Oh,
because
I would say.
We've been in Watertown for 24.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
And I did another theater company before Penguin, which was Phoenix, and I'm not sure if Jim did anything with us on that side.
That was before we moved here.
I know when it was actually. We did Nonsense at Jefferson High School, and we had to have someone help us with a spotlight or something, and so we got Jim to do it because Jenny Ortega, who works with Watertown Players, was in the show, and they're very good friends with, her and her husband are very good friends with Jim and Lisa. So that was it. And I'm like, oh, what a nice guy. I need to work more with him. And you may know him as Jimmy on Ask Aunt Anne.
That is correct.
Yeah, so we're all in, you know, when you do theater, you just kind of whatever.
Being on camera is not his first choice. He would much rather be either in the tech booth, running the sound and lighting, or be behind the camera.
Yeah.
So if you see him on camera, consider yourself lucky.
That's right. So look at those old past episodes of Ask Aunt Anne. He's so natural.
Yes. And he'll be wearing a hat to keep the light off of his bald head.
I've known Jim so long. He had hair when I first met him.
Oh!
Sorry, Jim. Love you.
Well, I'll admit he had hair when we got married.
Yes.
And now since we've been married, he's lost his hair. So I wonder if there's any direct correlation there.
Absolutely. So where's your favorite place to be cozy? Do you have one?
My favorite place to be cozy, I would say one spot would be on our back patio at our home if it's a lovely day. In a library, or at home snuggled up on our couch with the dog on my lap reading a book.
That's always nice. The dog lets you read the book.
Yes.
Unlike mine.
Well, if it's Gracie, not if it's lucky.
Not if it's lucky.
No. Or in my sewing area downstairs. That's another place I find very cozy.
I find it cozy when I'm finished a project, but not when I'm doing it. That's very stressful.
Yes.
Yeah, and I like to do a lot of costuming, and so that can be very tear out your hair kind of a thing. But the end results are always Not always, actually, but most of the time they
Usually.
turn out really, really well. So yeah. But I really like being outside. As much as I love my house and I love the little areas that I've set up in it, I am definitely, I think because I grew up in the country on a farm, that to me is where I find my inner peace. And even if it's just, I was in Bayfield, northern Wisconsin this weekend, and I just took a second and I looked up and I could see Lake Superior and all of the boats and then the Apostle Islands in the background, and I could just feel my blood pressure drop. I could feel my shoulders lower. And I'm like, yes, this is what it's all about, you know? So that's one of my favorite places, just outdoors, in the woods, of nature, you know, real flowers.
Yes, I love nature, but unfortunately I have severe seasonal allergies and outdoor allergies. So for me to spend a lot of time outdoors is sort of a double-edged sword, because I end up congested and with runny nose and
that's not cozy.
itchy eyes. And that is not cozy, no. As much as I love being surrounded by flowers and greenery, it's hard for me to spend a lot of time outside.
But you found your places that are cozy for you, that don't make you feel uncomfortable. And so that's what you need to do too, if you want to get that peace of mind that comes with being cozy and relaxed. You know, finding that 5 minutes a day even, or if you can get away with it an hour, ooh, that would be wonderful. So what else? What else do you like to be cozy? Do you like music playing?
I love music. I would have to say when I go get a massage and she has that spa music playing in the background, that to me is like the ultimate cozy, comforting, relaxing moment. Just that sort of gentle piano playing in the background.
And do you, like, if with me, when I get a massage, she goes, we both got massages in common, because that's a really good thing to do for yourself if you can.
You're worth it.
Definitely. But I mean, I will lay on there, you know, before she comes in, and I'm under the covers, and I hear that music, and I almost don't need a massage, because it just triggers that whole relaxation. Yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely a mindset.
Yep, for sure. And I love music. I don't play it as much as I used to, but because I listen to books and audio books a lot. I listen to over 100 a year just on audio, and that doesn't count the ones I read, because it's always on. Because I live by myself, it's not like there's conversation going on all the time, so that's always kind of nice to have that going on. But I have found out if I don't particularly like the book, I'll get stressed. So there's always that downside of the same thing. But as far as music goes, something that's just soft and that I have familiarity with it too. So, you know, the music that I heard when I was in high school, the music I heard, you know, and no, Jordan, it wasn't ragtime. Just Jordan's our camera person, so I'm making comments about my age, I'm sure. But in the music that I listened to in college especially, oh my gosh, you know, and usually it's good memories that bring you right back to that music. Music is amazing, really, if you think about it. To me, that's time travel.
Yeah. I can remember when I was in grade school, my mom and dad had a big console record player.
Yes.
And next to it they had the cabinet full of records, and I would just love sitting there going through the records. And then my dad would put on like a Guy Lombardo album.
I love Guy Lombardo.
We would dance, we would waltz together in the living room. And that's a very special memory, and it brings back a lot of hygge, the feeling of hygge and contentment.
Contentment and safety, and everything's going to be okay. And can you picture that in your mind, can you smell the records?
Oh,
you
sure.
smell the vinyl?
Yes.
I can smell it so much. And the cardboard. I know.
Cover,
yeah. And I can understand why now a lot of people are going back to albums, just because it's so tactile.
And it's
you know?
nostalgic.
It is. Although the younger, you know, college kids are getting their turntables and playing music that, you know, that are probably out of Grandma and Grandpa's basement. It's like, yeah, here's my Peter Frampton Comes Alive album. You need to listen to that. So yeah, it's a tactile thing. And that's another thing too, is touch. You know, I'm a toucher, because you're a toucher too, because we both like to sew, and fabric, oh my gosh.
We were talking about going to the Downton Abbey exhibit with all the costumes from the show. and how badly we both just wanted to touch the pieces on display, but there are signs all over the place. Please do not touch, but just all like the velvet overcoats with the fur collars and the beautiful lace dresses.
And silk. Even the wool, it's real fabric, you know, it feels so nice. So yeah, that's a big part of it too. So is that something that, you know, you feel too, and you feel fabric and you can feel it, especially velvets, I think. They're just, you know, so beautiful. I mean, how does that feel when you do that? Close your eyes once. You know, that's one thing too, when people get stressed out, they say, you know, breathe, close your eyes, think of like, 3 things that you can smell, and 5 or so things that you can feel, even if it's not there. It's like this wicker, you know, you close your eyes and feel what wicker feels like and bring back memories of that. So it's a great way to de-stress yourself too.
It's a great mindfulness technique.
Very much so.
That is a mindfulness.
Yep. And mindfulness really is, we hear that word a lot, but it really is just paying attention to your surroundings and the place that you're in right now.
Being present.
Exactly. So instead of us thinking about what we have to do on Monday morning and our work, we're thinking, well, I'm here with a really good friend and we're talking about things that we enjoy, and we've got this really good food that we're going to probably eat after we're done.
Maybe we'll share some with Jordan.
Maybe, if he's nice. But yeah, it's just taking, you know, being aware of where you are and appreciating it and feeling the breeze and hearing the birds, and yeah, it's just lovely. It's just lovely. So I think we probably chatted enough about ourselves. We want to talk now a little bit about journaling, because Lisa had this amazing idea. So tell us about it.
Yes. So when Jill and I first got together to talk about how we would like to put this show together and sort of our concept, one of the things that I started doing was trying to figure out what in my life, what different things allow me to feel a greater sense of hygge. And so in order to do that and to be more mindful of where I experienced that in my life, I started journaling. Now, my goal was to try to do 1 journal entry every day. I started out really strong and then I kind of petered out a little bit, but I have been doing at least 3 journal entries a week.
Wow, that's really good. I have 1. So don't feel bad if you start this and you only have 1.
You have to start somewhere.
You have to start somewhere, exactly.
But I just took, you know, it didn't take me more than about 5 minutes. At the end of each day, I would sit down before I went to bed and just jot some notes down from the day in my journal about the moments from that day that I felt the most content or took the most delight in the day. I think that's another really great way to look at it, is where do you find the most delight in your life or delight in your day? Yeah,
that's a good way. That's another great word. So,
yeah, I love that word. And so when I was going through this a week or so ago, I realized that a lot of where I find my hygge is in the sensory experiences, like we were just talking about, like the sewing or shopping for fabric in a quaint little quilt and fabric shop. And also, you know, doing things that are very sensory, like cooking. When Jim and I take the time to make dinner together, and then we can enjoy the flavor and all of that as part of our day, and just have that opportunity to talk with one another. So that's been really beneficial for me to kind of focus in where, on the spots in my life where I can be more mindful about creating a greater sense of well-being and contentment, I think.
Yeah, again, just paying attention to what's around you. So the one that I wrote down and is just last weekend. So I finally have nice grass in the back of my house. When I moved in here, it was kind of a mess, and I had to take a tree down. And so last year I put a nice little patio in, and it got a nice little grass that's not like full of weeds. And you know, not that there's anything wrong with weeds, but they're not really fun to walk on. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna kick off my shoes, walk on my grass, and I'm like, I think I'm going to lay down in my grass too. My neighbors probably think I'm weird, but they probably do that already. And so I just laid there for probably 10 or 15 minutes. No bugs crawled on me, which was nice. But I could hear the birds. I could hear the wind in the trees. And that really cued me, because when I grew up in Upper Michigan, there's trees everywhere. And you always hear that. And sometimes you're just immune to it because it's always there. But now when I think of it, it's like, oh, I feel like I'm back home, and I'm back when I was young with my parents, and everything was wonderful and calming. And so, so that was mine. But you know what else? I found out that there's a word for wind in the trees.
Ooh.
I know. I've been finding all these really cool words that no one uses to describe things that are, to me, cozy or hygge, right? So it's a really ugly word sounding word for this beautiful thing. So wind in the trees is sithorism. And it's Psithurorism. Sithorism. Yes, and I did
wind in the trees.
Wind in the trees. Yeah. So now you got a new word. Sithorism. Yes. Sithorism.
I love that you took the time just to lay down in the grass.
Oh, God.
If I did that, I would be a congested mess.
Yes.
But I'm happy for you that you were able to find your hygge by doing that.
And see, my allergy cue is dust.
Oh,
So outside I usually don't have that problem, but inside, especially in the spring and the fall, when we either closing things up or opening things up, and that's when the dust kind of, So we all have our thing that we try to avoid. So I don't clean as much as I probably should.
Oh,
I've got a good excuse, right? It's allergy inducing. So so think about doing a journal. It's kind of a neat thing. And I got to tell you, this journal is from a friend, well, I should say an acquaintance, a mom of somebody that I used to work with, and who wrote a book on mindfulness. And she has a website, and it's called mindfulgratitude.com. She's in Milwaukee. Her name is Crystal. And she was actually on the show with us, and we did a really nice interview about being grateful and how much that improves how your outlook is too. So, when something bad happens, it's hard, but if you can think about what there's in it to be grateful for, it doesn't feel quite as bad, I think, as it could, And
I've heard of some folks doing like a gratitude journal.
Yes, that's what this was for.
Yes.
Yep.
So you just take, a few minutes at the end of your day to reflect on the day. Just jot down, 3 things that you were grateful for in your day, and that can really help sort of transform your outlook from maybe not such a positive one to one that's more hopeful and positive.
Yes, exactly. Because a positive, the half full thing. I know it's cliche, but it's really the truth. I think I read something the other day, which I can't tell you when and where, and I don't have any collaboration, but I read it, that half the people who are optimistic have more energy and they get things done more than people who don't. So something to think about. And it doesn't have to be something huge. You can be grateful that, let's see, what's a good grateful one? Oh, well, I can be grateful right now because it's not raining out, because this morning it was raining out, and I was grateful it was raining because we need the rain. So, it's just how you look at things. It's all outlook, right?
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
So great. So start your journal. Let us know. Maybe we should make our own journals to send to people, huh?
Idea.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll try to do better for next time. We'll see.
It's something to work on.
It is. So I think next up we were going to talk about TV shows and film. So you start out, Lisa, with your favorite TV shows.
Yes. So one of the things that led us into this conversation was that in May I had read an article that said in a recent poll of 2,000 people, and this poll was conducted by a market research company on behalf of a streaming service, they concluded that 55% of American adults use comfort TV and movies to self-soothe and distract themselves from daily anxiety and stress. I thought that was really interesting because then it went on to note that more people use this comfort TV experience than things like going to get a massage at the spa or taking a bubble bath. I just found that really interesting.
Yeah. Easier, I suppose.
I suppose so, more immediate perhaps.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about that and wondering, just sort of reflecting, do I use television and movies as a way to self-soothe and kind of wind down? And I think I do. I think I have a few favorite TV shows that I could say sort of help me just to kind of chill at the end of the day. I'm sitting there watching with little Gracie on my lap, and maybe we've got some snacks on the coffee table, but one of my favorite shows to watch is Project Runway. Again, going back to the sewing and the creative process and that type of thing, I just find so much contentment in that, and I love watching the entire season of Project Runway every time that's on.
And I've never watched it.
Oh, I can't. You would love it.
Well, I don't get that channel, so because I'm very limited. I don't have cable, so I'm limited. But I've always thought it would be fun to watch.
Okay, we'll have to have a Project Runway.
There we go.
Binge watching.
There you go. I love it. I love it.
I also love the show Downton Abbey. I know it's in reruns now, but just the again going back to the beautiful costumes and the scenery and the wonderful characters. That's definitely a hygge show and a comfort show for me.
Oh, for sure. And it's so well written, too.
Yes.
I don't, you need to have the whole package when it comes to, and I love the written word, and I love when it's clever or funny. That, to me, that makes the show. That's why one of my favorite TV shows is Gilmore Girls, because it's so well written. And I read I listened actually to an autobiography of the lead character, Lorelai Gilmore, about how many pages were in that script, because it's just, they start talking and they never stop. And so learning those lines, I mean, wow,
be a nightmare.
Kudos, right? Yeah, for sure. So that's one of my favorite, and there's like 7 seasons, and then they came back in 10 years and they had this big wrap-up thing, which was kind of fun, although it left you on a cliffhanger. But yeah, so that, and then again, you're in the town of Stars Hollow, which is this little town in Connecticut that, it's got all the touchy-feely, but the people have real problems, and it's just, and it's quirky, and I love quirky. Quirky's fun. But as far as like how-to kind of things, Great British Bake Off.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I love that show, because it's a reality show, but people don't yell and scream at each other and be rude and nasty, and that's not cozy. So it's not cozy at all. But so I love that show. Every time it's on, I watch that. But now, as far as movies go, I'm a movie fan. I still have DVDs. Forget this streaming baloney. So I can, because I can do it anytime I want to, because they're just sitting on my shelf. So I'm really good at estate sales and thrift shops and go through all of those to see the ones that I don't have.
At least you're not sitting here with VHS.
I'm not.
So that's good.
I am not. I did get rid of those, but thank goodness. They take up too much space. I can have more when they're skinny. So, so here are a few of my favorites. This one, I don't know if a lot of people know, but the Down with Love. Which, have you seen this one?
I have not, but it sounds like something that I think I would enjoy.
It's a takeoff on those Doris Day, Rock Hudson movies, and in fact, what's his name that was always in those that just passed away? Tony Randall, yes. He's in here just cameo, because he used to be the sidekick guy in those movies. But the clothes, oh my gosh, the fashions are 60s, and they go way over the top, because it's all tongue-in-cheek. Really, really well done. And this is an oldie but goodie. It's called Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House. And this one is Cary Grant and Myrna Loy, two of my favorite actors ever. And they decide to move out of their cramped quarters in downtown New York, and they move out to the country in Connecticut. And of course, they fall in love with this house that's ready to fall down. So they end up having to tear it down and build a new one. And if anyone has ever gone through a construction project, you know what can happen. It's basic if you know The Money Pit with Tom Hanks, it's kind of similar to that one. For animated, I love Over the Hedge.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes, it's just so sweet, and it's funny, and Steve Carell is absolutely hilarious as a squirrel. And I'm just total rom-com. Oh my gosh, I'm just terrible with it. Notting Hill is one of my favorites. Of course, Sleepless in Seattle, and You've Got Mail are all some of my favorites. And and I can watch this so many times. I probably watch it 4 or 5 times a year, if not more. And it's just, I love it. And I know how it turns out, but I still love it. Another new one, The Proposal with Sandra Bullock.
And that's a good one.
and Ryan Reynolds. That's
and
really
Betty
fun
White.
too. Oh, Betty White. Oh my gosh, absolutely. You talk about TV shows. That was one of my favorites growing up, was the Mary Tyler Moore show. So. Yes, so there's plenty of stuff out there, and you have your favorites because they bring back a memory, they bring back a time frame that you'd love to visit. It just, everything snaps, everything's right, and that might change too. I mean, you might have a favorite movie from when you were in high school, and you look at it now and you're like, really?
Why did I ever enjoy that?
Why did I even watch that? But it reflects where you are in your life.
I have to say, for me, when I was in high school, I loved the movie Dirty Dancing.
Oh, did you?
And I still do. I just love that it's set in the 50s, at this cute little resort, and yeah.
You know what bugs me about that movie? And it was okay. I didn't particularly fall in love with it like you did. Probably because you're younger than I am, and it was more at that time frame it came out. Well, enough. But anyway, it might have hit you at the right time. For me, I was older, and it didn't do as much to me.
Sure.
But those cut-off shorts that she was wearing. Sorry, they did not wear those back then. So, just saying.
That's true.
That's the kind of stuff that will ruin something for me.
See, the details.
It's the details. Exactly.
Inconsistent details.
Exactly. You need the details.
Yes.
So what are your favorite movies or TV shows that you like to basically curl up with, to watch over and over again to make yourself feel better? Let us know on our Facebook page. And here it is. I'll just look for Cozy with Jill and Lisa, and you'll be able to find it. So I hope you join in on that. And so, next we were going to talk about food.
Yes.
Because food is
Comfort
very, very comforting, depending on what it is, whatever you like. But presentation is huge too.
Yes.
So like we were saying earlier, think about how you're going to present it, even if you're eating by yourself. So in the morning, this is my favorite teapot. I have my ginger tea. This is my cup that I use. And I have my plates, this magnolia pattern. It's a 50s pattern that I picked up at an estate sale. I use them every single day, the china. Now those I don't use as much, but I get those at estate sales. They all blend in the pink. And sometimes I look at my table and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a picture because it looks so nice,
And it's a very soothing shade of pink.
It
too.
is.
It's not like in your face Pepto-Bismol.
Right.
It's a very soft,
very soft.
pink.
And it's most of this is like a carnival glass, since it was popular in the 30s and 40s. So yeah, and granted, all these styles are different, but they all blend together because they have the pink. And then we have fresh strawberries, so it brings in that reddish color too. So that's kind of cool. So speaking of fresh strawberries, this is June. Strawberries are in season, and they're super tasty because you can get them locally, and they taste so good. And the other thing that's in season right now is rhubarb. So one of my favorite recipes is a strawberry rhubarb coffee cake that I got from this book that my cousin Jeannie gave me for Christmas years ago, and it's I can't remember the date on it, but it's the prize-winning recipes of Taste of Home, which of course always has good. And I got to show you this. So in my old house, I had this set on a shelf by my fireplace, and I didn't realize that's a really bad place to put books because of the damp. So it's got like damp spots on it. And then because I'm a terrible slob when I cook, there's spots all over it. So if you go through my cookbooks, you can tell all the ones that I use, because it's just embarrassingly dirty.
Well, I would never trust a tidy cook, I don't think.
Yeah, I kind of wonder about that myself.
You have to kind of make a little bit of a mess, I think.
I'll go with that. I'll go with that. So basically we've got 3 cups of fresh or frozen rhubarb, which is kind of nice because you can do this then, you know how it is, you get too much rhubarb, put it in the freezer. And I just made this yesterday, in fact, and I had frozen from last year. So I'm like, oh, I better use that up before it gets pretty nasty. So 3 cups of that, a quart of fresh strawberries, which of course, that's about 4 cups, just so you know, because quarts, you buy strawberries, sometimes they're not full quarts, and so it's about 4 cups. So you got to smash them up really good, and then you throw that with a little lemon juice in a pan and let that cook down so it gets kind of squishy. And then after about 5 minutes, then you add some sugar and a little cornstarch with it. which will thicken it up a little bit. And then while that cools, you make the cake. And the cake itself is just 3 cups of flour, sugar, baking powder, salt, baking soda, and it's got a cup of butter cut in. So you want it to be a little hard, but not super hard, because you don't want to squish it. And then 1.5 cups of buttermilk, which every time I go to make this recipe, I'm like, oh, dang, I don't have the buttermilk. But you know, they do have the dried stuff that you can get. So it's like, it's like a little container that almost looks like, what am I thinking? Like, remember Crisco in the can?
Yes.
It looks like that. And it's got buttermilk written on it, and it's like dehydrated buttermilk.
Oh,
so you can use
powder?
it. It's powder.
Oh.
Yeah. It's great. So have that on your shelf. It's a really good, and it's shelf stable, so it'll last for a really long time. So anytime you're trying to make buttermilk biscuits or waffles, you know, you never have buttermilk in the house. So that's a good way to do it. I had to go to the store.
Today.
Yes. There you go. I did have to go to the store and get buttermilk because I was out of the other. But anyway, and then a couple of eggs and vanilla. And so you mix that all together. And it's a thicker dough, but not too thick. And then you just pour that into a 9x13 pan that you've greased, and then you do half of it. Then you put your strawberry rhubarb, basically jam at that point, and then you dollop the rest of it on top. And then there's a crumble topping, which is just your flour and sugar and butter. And put that on top, and then you bake it for like 340 for like close to 50 minutes or so, and it turns out so good. And it's a great thing to take to an event because it goes over really well. Just be careful you don't undercook it. I had to do that. I did that once, and I was so disappointed because the inside was kind of, but you know, every stove is different, so you got to get to know your own stove. I had a new stove at the time, so. So that's my recipe to share, and we will have this up on our Pinterest page too, so people can see it. Like I said, Taste of Home, and it'll just bring you right to that page, and it'll give you all the instructions. So,
excellent.
What did you decide to do?
So a few weekends ago, we went to a farmer's market, and one of the things I picked up there was rhubarb. I didn't know you were going to do a rhubarb recipe too, but we're perfectly in sync here. So when I got home, I decided I was going to make some rhubarb bread, and this is an absolutely delicious rhubarb bread recipe that I've been making for several years. A little bit of milk, some lemon juice, some vanilla extract, some vegetable oil, an egg, flour, salt, baking soda, about 1.5 cups of chopped rhubarb. And the thing that makes this especially delicious is that you throw in 1/2 cup of dried cranberries. So that flavor mixed with the rhubarb is absolutely delicious.
Yum. Oh, that's a great, I love that. I need that recipe.
I'll get this one for you. A little brown sugar and some cinnamon and butter. So you mix everything together that you need for the bread, and then you've got sort of a crumble mixture with the cinnamon, the sugar, and the butter on top. And you bake it for 40 minutes plus an extra 15 minutes. And then it just actually this recipe makes 2 loaves.
Nice.
So you can eat one right away and freeze the other one.
Or give it to a friend.
Yeah. Perfect. It's delicious, and it looks really pretty too.
Bet.
It's got
Colors.
the rhubarb and the dried cranberries in it.
Now, do you use fresh rhubarb, or can you use frozen? Have you tried it with frozen?
I have not tried it with frozen. We used fresh.
Okay, because I know sometimes they can get watery when they're frozen, but usually rhubarb is okay. I think, if I recall correctly, they're okay.
It should be okay.
Yeah. So anyways, well, excellent. Those both sound really good.
Yes.
And they would go well with our tea. Both of them
Yes.
would go well with our tea. So
I have another recipe.
Oh,
to
you've got
share,
another
too.
one.
I
Excellent.
do. In April, Jim and I went on a road trip down to Georgia over Mother's Day to visit his family down there. And we decided that we were going to make dinner for his mom as our Mother's Day gift to her while we were down there. So we needed a recipe that was fairly simple, so we could just go to the local store and pick up what we needed. But also, hearty and not too complicated. So what we decided to make was kielbasa and veggie sheet pan meal.
Oh, interesting.
So it's so good, and it's one of my favorite comfort foods, actually. So you've got yellow mini potatoes that you cut up into halves. You take fresh broccoli florets and chop them up so they're nice little pieces. Some shredded cheddar cheese, smoked sausage, or we actually prefer to use turkey kielbasa, and then your favorite barbecue sauce.
Oh.
And so all you have to do, it's so simple. You just line a big baking sheet or a big cookie pan with your foil, and then you put a little bit of olive oil on there and toss your potatoes in the olive oil, season them with a little bit of salt and pepper and just a little bit of garlic. Garlic powder gives them a little extra flavor. And then you bake the potatoes for just 15 minutes. And then while you're doing that, you slice the kielbasa and toss that with a little bit of barbecue sauce.
Ah.
When you take out the potatoes, you throw everything else on there together and just bake it for 10 more minutes until the broccoli is tender. And it's simple and delicious. When you take it out, you sprinkle it with a little bit of the cheddar cheese, and it's so good.
Wow,
It
that
was a
sounds
hit.
great.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
liked
that
it a
sounds
lot.
really good and so simple. Those one pan meals are becoming very, very popular.
Yes.
And I think that over the whole pandemic thing, when people were starting to cook a little bit more because obviously you couldn't go out, people enjoyed that so much. But now that we're kind of going back to normal, we've got a little less time. So things like that, where you're still making this lovely homemade meal, but yeah, it's simple and it doesn't take forever.
It's not complicated. It doesn't take very long.
And it's healthy,
delicious.
really. I mean, don't eat too much sausage, but
Right.
yeah.
And a member of Jim's family is actually diabetic, so we did a portion of the kielbasa without the barbecue sauce, which tends to add a lot of sugar.
That's true. That's very true.
So it worked out beautifully that way.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, if you don't want to use broccoli, you can always use other things too. So some carrots, they would have to go in with the potatoes because they take longer to cook. But yeah, for sure, that's a really good one. So we'll have these also on our Pinterest page.
Try them and let us know what you think.
Yeah, for sure. And if you want to add anything to it, if you think, oh, I did this, but I decided to tweak it, because we tend to do that, right? We tweak recipes to fit our personalities or our taste buds. And so let us know so you can share it with other people. So.
And if you have a favorite recipe to share,
Yes.
please send that our way and we can try it.
Yeah. And if we
share
agree,
that with everybody.
we'll
That's
talk about
watching,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I'm a vegetarian, actually pescatarian, so so if there's meat involved, Lisa will try it.
We will try that at our house.
Oh my gosh, time flew so fast. I can't believe that we've just talked all this time. But that's what you do with friends.
Yes.
You catch up, you share your life with them. And so that's what we're trying to do here, share our lives with you. Thank you for watching, and come back next month, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And spread the word about us, okay?
Yes.
Thanks.